Yeah. Welcome to the new Real Estate Roadmap podcast. My name is Chris Cusimano, and I am joined today with a couple awesome people. Let's do ladies first. Who are you?
Thank you. I'm Jen Konikoff with the Homes by Kusi team. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. And our second lady is who? No one spoke
Okay,
up.
it's Alex Mendel with Keller Williams Realty out of Boca Raton.
I was going to see which one of you guys would speak up. And we have a special guest who did podcast bomb us a couple weeks ago at the tail end of it. We had a great conversation. He's going to be our guest today. He's going to talk about all things negotiations and then some. What's your name, sir?
Derrick Chevalier. So happy to be here on time.
Yeah. So what happened is, what he's referring to is a couple of weeks ago, there was a mishap in communication between Derrick and myself on the timing of the podcast, and he came on right at the tail end of it. And then we shot the shit for a little bit, but then time ran out, and I didn't think it was fair to him. So we're gonna have him back on because he has super unique and exciting insights into the world of negotiating, which is what every real estate agent should be talking about. But before we dive into that, I missed last week. I listened to your guys' podcast for a little bit. I noticed that you guys only went for a half hour without me. What was up with that?
Well, Christopher, it only took us an hour to hop on.
Yeah. That was my fault, right?
Yeah. So we were working on very limited time. We were hyper-focused on our points. I hope you noticed that.
We speed ran it. That's the way I look at it. And we also didn't have our third musketeer to kind of fill in the dead air. So
Yeah. So that was my fault. So what they're referring to log on to do these podcasts, there's the site we use is called riverside.fm. And you have to log directly in with my Google account, not like username and password. You have to actually like log it. You know what I'm talking about. And obviously they didn't have this information. So like I'm juggling my kids at Universal Studios, and I'm sweating, and I'm buying this one food and all this, and I'm trying to get like codes on my phone and send it to it. And I did the best I could with the situation I was in, and they got it going. So check out that episode. It was actually pretty good. I was entertained for the 25 minutes that you did it.
it was also
I love how
very
you
much
went from
so.
30 to 25 minutes.
From 30 to 25.
It was
Yeah.
very much so. What would happen if two squirrels did a podcast? So we were just fast.
Chris, you were just right down the street from me when you're at Universal. Were you in Universal, Florida?
No,
Oh.
no, in Florida.
So Derrick,
okay.
you're in California though. Yeah. So he was in the Florida
Yes.
Universal.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you guys have the Super Mario World over there.
We do.
That's exciting.
I've got to go in there. They've got to introduce the California Pass again, though. They have a thing because, mostly the people come in the summer. So they have a thing if you're a California resident, you pay once and go for the whole year as many times
Oh, wow.
as you want. And wait for that
Sign me
one.
up.
Yeah.
Well, get her done. Well, they're building out here Epic Universe, a third Universal theme park, which is going to be massive. I don't know if you heard about it, Derrick. I'm kind of geeking out over it. Yeah, they open up early next year, and my wife and they're building 3 new hotels, and my wife and I got reservations for one of the hotels, hoping that we get the early rate, hoping that the park would be open by the time we get there. But if not, we'll do something else because it's Orlando.
That's fantastic. Love it.
Yeah, and we're not going to bring the kids because, I want to explore a new park without hindrance.
Yeah,
How
I'm gonna go to sleep at 8:00.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you take your kids, it is not like you're going to the theme
Correct.
park. It's your
That's
kids
not a
are going
vacation.
to the theme park. Yeah, you're a tour
And
guide.
even, yeah.
You
And
are
even
their
then-
servant.
That is it. And, we have 5 at different agents, and they all want to do different things. And the baby's pacifier fell into the mud, and then she just crapped her diaper, and the other kid needs to pee, and the other one is hot and doesn't want to do anything, and the other one's hungry. And it just becomes like, honestly, it sounds great on paper, but when you're there and you're out of your element, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, you need a vacation after
Absolutely.
that vacation.
Yeah, I feel
I-
like
I
you need
only
a mommy
have
and
two.
daddy vacation after that.
Yeah. Sorry, coughing on the mic. I'm professional. So, all right. So I do want to talk about something because we do real estate really unique ways. And ironically, we're at a part of our training, the Coaching by Kusi training, where, we walk through group community sessions on Tuesdays step by step of how to build your business in unique ways. And the part that we are at now that we covered yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. Was all about elevating a different product line to offer services to our clients where they don't get anywhere else. And we have a number of those products. Quickly run down. We have an assumable program where we teach people how to assume mortgages so they get lower rates, and that helps our listings get with their marketing, and it also helps our buyers assume lower rates. That's one. We have the builder trade-in program, which can save buyers tons of money on their commission if they use us on a new construction home. Only we have that program. We can get in the weeds on this another day, maybe later. And then we have the buy before you sell program, where you can leverage the equity of your current house to buy your new house without using a sale contingency and not rushing the process buying on your timeline. So these are really cool programs that we offer. And I thought I covered all the bases, but I went to a training on Monday, and I'm going to say, since the beginning of my career, or at least in the last 15 years, I have yet gone to a training where I felt stupid, where I'm like, I should have known this stuff, and I didn't know it. I'm going to talk about what it is. So it was all about, it was taking real estate to another level, more like being a real estate planner and wealth manager for your clients, as opposed to just a real estate agent. And I'm very blessed. I don't care if you guys join Keller Williams or not, but this is one of the reasons why I'm with this company, is because they offer these programs to us, or these trainings to us, that my whole career is built on stuff that they gave us. And yesterday was just another piece of it, where I was mad I didn't even think about this stuff before. And of course, we're not going to cover it all today. I'm diving into the training community with him. He's an estate planner. His name is Dan Ihara out of Hawaii. He's a 62-year-old man he was acting like the energy of a 30-year-old yesterday or 2 days ago. I was very impressed.
My
and
kind of guy.
Yeah, it was super. The guy surfs every day. I'm like, I love this guy. Anyways, I'm going to tell you how powerful this class is. So I went to this training, and just in the tips of the 2 hours I was there, he said a tip about taxes. And I went, wait, I don't think that I'm doing that. So I texted my CPA, and I'm like, hey, do you know about this IRS code or whatever? It was calculating the depreciation over 27 and a half years of your investment properties. I didn't know about that. And I'm a realtor. I felt stupid. And neither did my CPA. So she comes back. I have my tax form sitting on my counter yesterday. I didn't pay them. And I was like, hey, before I send these out and pay them, look into this. She goes, okay. Half hour later, she goes, my bad. Your taxes went down from this to this. The difference was $3,600. I made $3,600. But here's my thing about this. You could take this guy's course. It was just 1 day training, instantly provide value if you took notes to your clients and get back to you. But I'm paying for his coaching. I'm a big fan of coaching. And that's why I offer coaching to people. I feel like if you could pay someone an X amount of money to take what's in their brain to save you all the time to try to figure it out yourself, it's a no-brainer. So I'm paying for this guy's coaching. He made me $3,600. I'm going to invest that back into his program, and I'm going to learn everything I can to be a financial planner, wealth manager for my clients. Because one thing they always do is they ask about the capital gains, what's their tax risk, all that stuff. And honestly, I'm not that educated on it. I always say talk to your CPA, which is very unprofessional. I want to be like, yeah, this is how we should do it. You should probably wait to sell here because of the implications of your tax here. And you should probably buy this property at this time here. And you should probably, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And one question, he wrote a list of questions that were really powerful that he uses. And one is a game changer, I believe. That I think if we use this question and we actually know the answer to this question, really elevates us who we are as real estate agents to our listing clients that our competitors are not even going to even know how to touch. Mm-hmm. The question is, you ready for it? I'm building suspense so people don't log off this podcast.
Come on, Chris.
Keep them longer.
All right, just say it.
You're allotted time for our ADHD.
I'm going to log off.
Well, listen, just because you guys did a 20-minute podcast last week doesn't mean I can't talk.
Now we know why they take an hour.
So it is, do you know what your capital gains tax liability would be if you sold your house?
Yeah.
What other real estate agent asked that? What is your capital gains tax liability when you sell this property? no other realtor is going to ask that you're competing with. And if you can get that answer and then help them walk them through that, you can now save them more money on their taxes and their liabilities than they're paying you for commission, further elevating your value. And Derrick took a deep breath. That means he wants to talk. Go for it.
No, I took a deep breath because I'm like, aha. I mean, number one, everything you're talking about is a derivative of negotiation. In other words, the skill of negotiation is partly the skill of asking the kind of questions that you're asking. The way that you're asking the question, it's actually a close, because you're asking is, how do you handle your capital gains on XYZ property, or what is the impact of capital gains on the overall transaction of this or that? Well, those are questions that are going to grab the attention of the client because nobody else is asking it. And even if you don't know the answers yourself, and it's a fairly simple formula, but even if you don't know the answer yourself, it opens the door for you to make an introduction if you need to, or to get and use that information as part of establishing your own, quote, added value as a realtor. Mm-hmm. So that's what you're bringing to the table that somebody else is not bringing to the table. But that idea of having deep insight across all of the topics that real estate touches is phenomenal. I spent 5 years in my career doing taxes in a rural area where I'd go to people's houses a while back, but that foundation helped me very much, where I took courses in tax preparation. I spent about 5 years going out and actually doing people's taxes. So part of that insight informed my career as a broker.
Well, that's fascinating. But yeah, you made a couple good points, but a point I made about it is that you don't necessarily have to be the expert for the answer. You just got to see if they had an answer, or if they had questions about that question, that maybe you can guide them into that path.
Yeah,
right?
And it's a demonstration of your skill. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you were saying it's a demonstration of, I assume, our value, right? Our skills and our values.
Of your added value. Your added value, and that would be a question for everybody on your podcast. And in other words, I'll often ask somebody, what is your added value as a realtor? So how would you all answer that? How would you answer that, Alex?
I mean, mine is, I'm very digital marketing focused, so I'm able to expose people's properties more so to the masses versus the local market. If I feel like, I'm not one of those agents that will post a property on the MLS, throw a for sale sign, and cross my fingers and hope it sells. I utilize digital marketing in a way that most other agents don't, to get as many showings and buyers to our property. I feel like this is a more elegant way to say that, but yeah, that's about it.
Well, from a selling standpoint, but that's pretty good because it doesn't sound like a sales pitch. So, right. I mean, the idea that my marketing insight and intelligence is going to expose your property to 10,000 more people, which just means, from a simple math prospect, you're not only going to get more potential buyers, but higher quality buyers, so that you're selecting the buyer and the buyer's not selecting you.
It's like you went through our training, Derrick, because that's essentially what we do. We establish systems and models to provide solutions to our clients that they're just not getting anywhere else. And we can tangibly show this stuff to them in our presentations. And oftentimes you don't even need a presentation. If your marketing demonstrates what you do and they reach out to you, they already know what you do. You just got to not mess it up when you have a conversation with them.
Right.
Insert foot in mouth. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, pretty much. I've done that before. You ever go on this listing appointments and you think you nail it, and you leave and you realize, and they never call you again unless it was someone else. And the whole time you think you get it because you're like, yeah, but really what they're thinking is, let's just be nice and pleasant till he leaves. You don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, I have an article on LinkedIn that's called "Don't Be Bamboozled by Nice." right?
kill with kindness.
Well, it's the idea that so many people actually determine who someone is or what they are on the basis of the presentation that they make in front of you. So that's what we call the style of communication. But an astute negotiator is looking for the substance. So we see the style, the sizzle, but what we make a decision on is based on the substance that's behind that. There's a perfect quick antidote is that my girlfriend of 15 years had an issue with a transmission on a third or fourth car we have. Anyway, she was saying when we went in there, yeah, he did all the work, this mechanic locally that she knows. He's so nice. He's a great guy. And I took it to him to work on the AC. Well, yesterday we took it to an AC old timer that I had found. We go in there and he got the bill from the previous person. Now, I'd said to Martine, you can't be damn bamboozled by nice. But he's so nice and everybody's not trying to screw you over. Okay, that may be true. The question is who is and who ain't. Long story long, at the end of the day, the new mechanic demonstrated that every bit of the work that the previous mechanic had done was for nothing. And he showed it. It turned out to be a little valve that was a problem. And he had charged her almost $800 for that. But he's very nice. So,
Oh, I caught that word early on. He was a very nice guy, a nice experience. And yes.
Very nice.
Very nice. So but I think people forget to dig, right? People forget to dig beyond that surface, that surface conversation and dig deeper for the, like you said, the substance behind all of our motive. Everyone has motives. Everybody has an end game. So dig deeper and asking those true questions.
It's fascinating from a business perspective that someone would go out and they have the social awareness cues to know how to play the nice game, but not the business acumen to realize that your repeat customer base is the most important thing that you need to do. If you just be nice and do the right thing, even though you didn't make as much money then, you're going to make a lot more money long term. So it's just fascinating how limited people think.
Many people are transactional. That's the thing. They don't think that far ahead.
No, they want that money now because they have a fishing trip tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we did a poll on LinkedIn that not only went across the real estate spectrum, but there were about 1.5 million people. And I don't know, we had several thousands and thousands of people chime in. And the question had to do with whether or not you could determine that an outcome was win-win on the basis of your interaction with the counterpart. And a vast majority of people across the entire spectrum said, of course you can. I know that I had a good experience because the other person was pleasant and we had a good interaction. So knowing that statistic is a gold mine to anyone who also has competency as a sales professional, right? Or a realtor professional.
So it's almost
the nice
saying,
and the substance.
Right. So it's almost saying if somebody's an asshole on the other side, but gives you everything you want, it still feels like a negative experience because they were a piece of shit, but you got exactly what you wanted and said, oh, that was a terrible experience. Even though you got
That's exactly right.
Everything.
But think of it the other way from
right.
a sales strategy standpoint. More people are bamboozled by the idea that they meet someone, they have the right, and there's a lot of geography in this too. They meet someone, they have the right car, they run in the right circle. You therefore assume they're in the right circle and that they have that competency. Vast majority of professionals never get tested on the competency because it's so effective to sell the sizzle, right? So they are able to go in, establish the relationship, And that relationship gives them the opportunity, and they have so many opportunities that they don't even have to do well for everybody. But if they do well for a majority of their clients, then they still do very well. Whereas somebody, as Chris pointed out, who may not take every advantage of someone who's really looking to build a long-term relationship and over time establish trust, demonstrate competency, and deliver value, that is a much more difficult row to hoe. The reason is that the value of a long-term relationship is only understood after a long term. So you're going to miss a lot of people in the beginning who you're not going to get an opportunity to grow that relationship with because they're comparing you to somebody else who is so effectively selling the sizzle.
And I love how you put that. Sorry, Chris. I actually wrote it down. Sell the sizzle, because they sell the sizzle and they completely, and I'll use your word, bamboozle every single person to look beyond that and not look at what they're actually providing or lack thereof. I thought I was spot on. I had to write it down.
I know it sounds really bad, but when people are overly nice and overly kind to me, I do question their motives. I'm like, what? Why are you this pleasant? There's like, you know what I mean? It's a
I feel like it's almost like a defense mechanism. Like, everybody's so jaded in life right now that somebody that actually is a good person, like, I'm sure that happens with you, Chris. You're a good person. You try to make sure all your clients, maybe more so the ones that
I have a funny story here.
Aren't part of your Dream 300, part of your sphere. They're like, why is Chris like doing these things? Why is he so nice?
I'm gonna tell you something about that in a second, but I did want to make a point about what Derrick said, is that people make decisions based on emotion and feelings, and then they back it up with logic. So even if their emotions gave them the wrong decisions, they'll try to logically justify that emotional decision, because we are fragile little human beings.
They'll
with
try to
little
align
egos.
that logic, right? They'll force that logic to align with what they're feeling just to justify it, but in reality, they're just doing a disservice.
Well, they'll keep moving the goalposts to justify their emotional intentions. That's just what human beings do. People rather continue being wrong than ever admit that they ever were in the first place, and that all comes from emotional decision.
Yeah,
that's a bar.
Sure. That's yes. Well, the idea
that actually reminds me. Sorry.
The idea that people don't want to be, because we also did a lot of polling about this. People don't like being wrong. They don't like being wrong because of what they associate to the idea of I made a mistake. So that makes a lot of people feel weak. Right. And so that whatever I have to pay in order not to feel weak. And if that means even seeing that the substance of someone's character was not what I thought it was in the beginning, I'm willing to back that up in order not to have been wrong. Right. In order not to have made a mistake. So that's
Go
out.
No, I've learned to. I've kind of retrained my brain to be okay with being wrong and making a mistake, because it makes you a little bit more vulnerable. And if you can admit to your client, hey, look, there's something that was made in error, framing it like that. It was just something that was made in error. It's not me making a mistake, but you can kind of get ahead of it and make your clients, remember that you're a normal person, you're human. Everybody makes mistakes. But if you try to hide that mistake,
it makes it worse.
You're
not fooling anyone. They know you're wrong.
Yeah.
It's like you just making them look down on you, making you look worse than the person that you're trying to avoid being in the first place.
Versus gaslighting them into thinking that there was no mistake, or fighting them on something. Just be a human and say, you know what? I made that mistake. Let's fix it now. Here's the solution.
I was going to say, and now,
go ahead, John.
If you at that point, let's pretend that you completely deny your mistake. At that point, that relationship that you worked so hard to obtain on the front end, trust is gone. You are no longer going to work with this person again. And every single person that they could have referred you to, gone out the window. Adios, bye.
Adios.
Well, I
Adios.
wonder about that. I wonder, and I'll say why. There is a quantum change in communication and trust now that we've ever seen in the history of the country. So now we have an opportunity to witness significant people who have been caught in all kinds of compromising situations, and they are of the school: you never make a mistake, you never admit
Mm-hmm.
you're wrong, and it's working out pretty good for them. So the idea that at one point in history we might have thought, wow, it doesn't make sense that I would try to cover up my mistake rather than accept responsibility, correct it, and move on. That has been greatly challenged right now because there's plenty of evidence to suggest that, by the way, that's a negotiation and sales strategy too. The idea of never admitting that you make a mistake. It's another style of selling, and it's selling pretty good. So I think for me, the moral is two things. One, realtors are people, right? And
Mhm.
our objective is ultimately to negotiate the people and clients we're interacting with, not the transaction. The transaction are the details of getting the deal done. But the ultimate person that we're looking to satisfy is the other person. So we are in charge of crafting that relationship, which means the more skills we have, the more communication IQ that we have, the greater ability we're going to be able to read the needs of the other person and then provide for them what they need in order to establish that relationship and give us an opportunity to complete the transaction.
So Derek, take me back in your life a little bit, because you have a lot of great nuggets here. And how did you get to this point? So you you got into this negotiating world, and I want to get a little personal here. Why did you enter this world? There had to be some people usually enter a world because it innately solved a problem that they were experiencing, and they got really good at something because they were solving their own problem. Now they got off that advice. Is that what happened with you? You needed to learn these skills?
Not at all.
Oh, I was wrong.
I'll take you way back real quick
Good job, Chris.
because there's a through line in life in life. But as a kid, I was very curious. I had wanderlust, and I wanted to know everything. I was asking questions all the time. I would lie. I would steal. I would do whatever it took to have an experience in life because I grew up quite poor. So if I saw an opportunity to do something, I did it. Now I paid a lot of consequences for that, and because I'm older, and my mom didn't look at discipline the same way parents do today. We had different kinds of sessions to correct our behavior. So my mom used to say all the time, "You don't want to be a jack of all trades." So I grew up thinking that was a bad thing. Well, when I got a little older, I actually read the rest of that quote, which said, a jack of all trades and a master of none, but oft times better than a master of one. That's what Shakespeare was saying. Yeah. So here's to your question. At 14, I decided, literally woke up one day and go, I want to go to law school. Why? I cannot tell you. I want to go to law school. So I participated in everything and anything that was associated with that in my mind. That meant I studied speech communication. I did speech competitively. I studied theater arts. I studied political science, pre law, and other psychology and other areas. So that's what I wanted to do. Everything was focused because I thought I wanted to be in a courtroom. Then, just when I was finishing college and starting to enter law school, I met a girl.
And it all went downhill.
It sounds like a
now
song.
there. So I had an opportunity. Another girlfriend of mine said, "Look," she was actually a professor of mine. She goes, "You're not a student anymore." But anyway, she says, "Look, stay here and go to college and go to law school because that's your dream." But this other person was saying, "Look, let's go to Washington, place I'd never been, and start all over." So which road did I choose? Because I have wanderlust. I left college, actually a couple of courses short of graduating, went to rural Washington and literally started a life over in a place I'd never been. That led me into education because their law school was closest law school was 100 miles away. I ended up running a school. It was a high school preparation program in a university for all kinds of kids, white, black, native, Latino, from all over, which was great because I loved that. So I got a foundation in teaching at the university level, running this program. And then I missed California, came back, ended up in sales. And then I thought, I'm going to go back to law school, but I had gotten divorced, married again, had a kid. I'm like, I can't spend 3 years in law school. And guess what? I thought, what's the closest thing to law school that I can get a professional certification and get it and work? And I decided to become a real estate broker. And then
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, and then
Your
when
path is fascinating, Derrick.
Yeah, so when an economic downturn came, I did mortgage brokering, I did all kinds of stuff. Then an economic downturn came, the third one back. I'm like, the market was flat, there's nothing to do. So I'm like, I don't know, what am I going to do? And I opened up a newspaper, and there was a little teeny ad that said, negotiation seminar leaders wanted. And that turned out to be an ad by Chester Karras, who is the most, to this day, they're the largest negotiation training company on planet Earth. And I went to an open cattle call. They had hundreds of people there. They're talking about going out, using his system, traveling the world, teaching people to negotiate by doing his seminar. So the person, Frank Mobus, got up and he said, now, folks, we're doing 4 of these things. There's 1,000 people, and we only have 3 spots. And I stood up and I said, well, correction, you have 2 spots.
Nice.
Be
bold.
Which made him hate me, by the way, because I was arrogant and, like, well, who are you, right? So
I don't know, man. I wouldn't.
That became.
I wouldn't assume you were arrogant. I mean, maybe you were. I didn't know you then.
Well,
but
300
that's
people
your side
in
of the story.
Room. 300 people in the room, and he doesn't know me from Adam, and I'm jump up. You have 2 spots, but I'll tell you to answer your question specifically. When he talked about negotiation, that involved law, that involved theater, that involved interaction, it involved teaching, it involved sales, it involved everything that my life had been up to that point. I knew in that instant, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And I then spent, just to finish up, in order to get that job, first of all, I had to compete with about 1,000 people to get one of 3 jobs. Now, what did I win? I won an opportunity to spend 3 months. So it was a 2-day seminar that we would have to learn to do. And you had to learn each piece of the seminar. So what I did, they gave us a bunch of tapes of other people doing negotiation seminars. So what I did is I took those 18 tapes and I typed them out exactly like you would a script in a play, and I memorized 18 hours of content. I can do it now, right? So when I went in to compete with other people, I could do the entire 2-day thing from memory because my theater had shown me how to do that. Then I spent 14 years going all over the world, tailoring his negotiation strategies, it would be difficult for the three of you to name a company or an area that I didn't do, from hostage negotiation to jets and airplanes, real estate, all over. I worked in every state in the United States, all over Mexico and other places. And at the end of 15 years of that, I was pretty good at what I did.
So are you a real estate broker now?
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. I've maintained my license always, and I do work as a consulting broker, and I'll pick up a deal or two almost every year because I also own real estate in other states. But especially as a consulting broker, that's as I said last time. I work as a consulting broker, so if somebody has an issue with a client or with a deal or whatever, they'll call. I'm not training at that point. That's consulting. Here's the issue. Here's the snafu. This is where I'm trying to go. And then I'm able to provide specific action steps to that person to implement and resolve the issue. So that's the consulting side. Yeah, go ahead.
So this led you to write a book, right?
Actually, yes. Well, I've written 4 books, and while I was with Dr. Karras, I had a contract, so I couldn't write a book in negotiation. So I thought, well, what do I do about that? So I came up with the idea of writing a book series called Beyond Negotiating. The first book in that was called Beyond Negotiation: From Fear to Fearless, because I realized that for professionals and for all human beings, if fear stops us from taking an action, or if you talk about setting a goal, you have a lot of training people that talk about setting a reasonable goal. Well, first of all, that's an oxymoron. If you're setting something that's reasonable that you already know you can do, you're just playing with yourself. You haven't done anything.
Yeah.
If your goal is not uncomfortable and have consequences along the way as you're achieving it, then you're probably not stretching yourself. And what stops people from doing that is fear. So that first book was about how to recognize and navigate fear. And then the second book was about influence, rapport, results. Because the greatest tool that a realtor can have is not their selling ability, it's their ability to understand the difference between persuasion and influence. Sales is persuasion, and relationship is best nurtured through influence. And the vast majority of people have no clue what those two differences are. So that book talks a lot about what influence is versus persuasion versus different types of communication, as we were talking, so that not just that we become somebody else, but if I recognize different communication styles, I can understand the communication style of my client, which gives me a better opportunity to understand how to communicate with them. And then that book
that's extremely important.
Yeah. And that book also talks about effective communication. So what is that? It is not exchanging words, which is what most people do. It's exchanging congruence of meaning. So that means you haven't communicated to someone until they agree that you understand their point of view. That's congruence of meaning. That's not an exchange of words. And once we learn to effectively communicate, we hear the client. We understand their point of view. And here's the rub on this. If you will establish effective communication, something magical happens. So I would say, so Chris, as I understood what you said, it's important to be a conduit for our clients in the realm of taxes and in other areas that help them beyond the real estate transaction itself. And you said, yeah, Derrick, that's exactly what I said. That's great. We've now had a congruence of meaning. You said the words, I repeated the words back. You agree that I understand what you said. Now, here's the rub. When you do that, 99% of the time, the other individual will assume you agree with them because you heard them. When I might not agree with you at all.
You just understood.
Yes, but
Well,
because I've had that experience, we have something in common. You're not getting a backlash. So I move forward with you and we have a conversation. And that's the benefit of influence versus persuasion. Because I've influenced you to believe that I agree with you, when in fact I don't agree with you at all, or may not, right? Or maybe you don't even, maybe what you're saying is not even accurate. In the case of my example, what you said is tremendously accurate. So we do have a congruence of meaning, but I don't have to. And then I make a decision as to what I do about that. I may not ever say to you, Chris, I don't agree with you. I may never say that. Why? Because that will stop the relationship. Whereas congruence of meaning will allow us to communicate another day. So these are skills that come. So the negotiation book didn't come until the actual negotiation, what we call snuff negotiating, which is a book called Evolve or Be Slaughtered. That didn't happen until after
amazing.
Thank you. After 15 years with Karis, I came to a road when I decided, like, there's a lot of things. When Chet started negotiating, you didn't have a fax, you didn't have digital communication, you didn't have all of these things. So, of course, he didn't think about those things. So I'm growing up in a world where I had a background selling electronics. I was there at the birth of digital and all of that stuff. So the communication apparatus I understood. So I thought, I think there's a lot more to negotiation than transactional back and forth. So I gave up a contract that was probably at that time $175,000 to $200,000 a year, not knowing what I was going to do afterwards. And because I had a 2-year non-compete, I did not work in that area for 2 years. I studied, I traveled around the world, and I got to understand not only his framework of negotiation, but all of the great frameworks of negotiation. Then I wrote a book about it.
What's the name of the book again? It was Evolve or Be Slaughtered?
Yeah, it's called Evolve or Be Slaughtered, Negotiation for the 21st Century.
Sweet. We'll
and
put
that,
the link
the
in
2025 version of that book will be out in January. It's out there now, but the version out there now is from 2020. And that book is written to be upgraded about every 5 years. Why? To keep up. Here's the first question. Have there been any fundamental changes in the way people communicate? Number one. Number two, what changes in technology impact the changes in our knowledge base and behavior as negotiators? Obviously, right now, that would be AI.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
And memes.
Because there's plenty of people that think that AI is going to replace a real estate. And just as we think that we're going to kill the buying broker because of the changes in the commission structure, when all that's going to happen is it's going to do exactly what ought to happen, and it's going to cause weak people to drop off. It's going to cause competent people to get better, and the people that stick are going to make more dough.
That's how it always been.
Mm-hmm.
So going back into more topical stuff about real estate, in my career, I've heard so many doom and gloom scenarios, and every time it's the same thing. You know, you just mentioned it, is that the weak fall out, the cream rises to the top, and you just hone your skills, which is why, you know, we have you on today, because one of the skill sets you need is you need to be a killer negotiator. Think about the reason why sellers hire real estate agents is to market aggressively and negotiate for their best terms. And most real estate agents don't do either. So now you have a book coming out in January that can really elevate that.
And Derrick, can we find these books on Audible? Because I'm a huge Audible person.
No, they actually, what a great question, and thank you. And my publisher's going to love you because I have not put those books on Audible.
Oh,
But,
please do.
Yeah, but Evolve, the 2025 version, is going to be on Audible, and then we're going to take the other books.
Ooh,
because
who's reading it?
And they actually all go together. But so that's forcing the other books. So yes, thank you. I'm sure. And when Martine hears what, she's going to love you. How do I buy her dinner? Because she's like, dude, I'm driving around, I'll listen to it. And the idea is that for a lot of people are not interested in the backstory, because my book is more like it's like a textbook that breaks down why these things are important.
Oh wow!
But the meat of it for people is things like tactics and strategies about communication styles and these elements of influence. So those kinds of things are things I would put on if I was listening, because we listen to a lot of Audible books, because what you want is the repetition to remember it, right? Because we have something that we call ICSER, and it's the process of learning anything. That means that the first step is information. So as Chris was talking about going to a training session, the 2 hours, somebody is presenting information, right? Chris now took some of that information out of 2 hours. He shared with us a tidbit that might have been 15 minutes of that 2 hours about the capital gain. But so we take information to knowledge, right? Now Chris's job is to take that knowledge and raise it to a level of skill, meaning that he calls a CPA, meaning that he understands the equation. It's not everything, but you understand how it works, what it is. Then you take skill to expertise, sharing that knowledge with your clients. Then you put that expertise into action, into your marketing, into your interaction with clients. Then you take that action and you look at the result, and that result will tell you what you actually learned. Before that, people mistake going to a class for learning a skill. Completely different parts of the process. Information, which, by the way, is data. All information is data. Data is inanimate. It doesn't think, it doesn't feel, doesn't care what your name is or where you came from. Chris's job, as he did this morning, in sharing that knowledge that he had to understand, to help us understand the question of the impact of capital gains, that was a demonstration of him practicing. Do I really remember that? Do I know that? And yes, you do. And then what did he then say? Now I'm going to take my 3,500 and go for that knowledge to a level of expertise so that I can share it with my team and the audience. That's what I saw happen as a negotiator, right?
Well, you are right, sir. That is what happened. And also, I believe that helps with negotiations, because when it's not just negotiation is a craft, but I've also learned in my career is that when you simply have a skill set or a expertise or a knowledge base, that negotiation is not even a thing. It's more of there's just no competition. And that's kind of one of the big reasons why I want to take what I learned yesterday and apply it to go higher level stuff that were even higher than we had before to further eliminate competition. Because the thing about negotiation is when you have the cards are in your favor and there's really no one else giving them what you have, it makes negotiating so much easier. There's no competition.
Yeah, but I want to make this point.
You should write a book on that, Derrick.
Yeah, I will. One of the key things to remember is this. Realtors in particular, and lots of salespeople do this, but realtors in particular think of negotiation only as the transactional part of buying and selling goods and services. when in fact, there's no such thing as an interaction with a human being that does not involve negotiation. Therefore, negotiation involves every aspect of human interaction. When you're talking about being with your kids and you have 5 kids, I don't know your 5 kids, but I would put my life savings on the fact that they all require a different type of negotiation from you, right? And not only that, somebody asked me on TV once, I think it's on the website, they go, what's the biggest, most impactful negotiation you've ever been in? And I thought about it and I said, have you ever negotiated with a 4-year-old?
Yeah. To go to bed.
Yeah.
With anything.
There's not a 4-year-old in the world who can't out negotiate any adult. One, they don't care what you think. Two,
there's no
they don't
fear.
care many times they repeat what they want, because what's important is what they want. That's right. They have all the skills, and if you look at a 3 or 4-year-old, they're the perfect negotiating machine. They cry, they ask, they want, they act out, they have different voices.
No, they just wear you down, Derrick. They just wear you down.
That's a tactic too.
You just get to a point where you're just like, dude, I don't care. Here is cake for dinner.
I wish you could hang up the phone on your kids sometimes.
Yeah, and at no point do they go. And not only that, if you have 5 kids, these kids are a perfect example of team negotiation. Without even understanding.
They do. Dude, you're not kidding.
Go ask mom.
They gang up.
Yeah, they go, you
But I switched it on them, Derrick.
Dad. Yeah, okay.
Derrick,
Yeah,
listen, I switched it up on them because I adapted to their skills. And now what I do is if one of them does something that's wrong, they all get punished. Well, not the 2 little ones, the 3 older ones. So like they have a puppy and if they poops on the floor and they don't clean it up, I'll say it once and they go clean it up a second time. They all get punished. They all lose their devices for a couple hours. Like, that's not fair. It's not my dog and it's hurts. Don't care. You guys are going to gang up on me. You all going to suffer the consequences.
Were you in the Marine Corps?
No, I was too scared. I ain't fighting nobody.
Well, that's a Marine. That's
clearly,
a Marine
Chris
Corps
is
training tactic.
Is it?
I was in the Marine Corps. That's a Marine Corps training tactic. One person mess up and 73 guys are end up pay the price, and pretty soon you end up to take care of your brother, right, or your sister. Mm-hmm. We didn't have women in our unit, but today there are plenty of great female.
No, Derrick, it was just survival. It's just survival to get them all to shut up all at the same time. That's all.
There you have.
You can see Chris is a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah. But if you observe children, I took my kids on the road. My son was about 3. I took them to negotiating seminars with me. I had the bassinet and the carriage and all that stuff. I'd take them and then I'd hire a nanny while I was working. By the time my son was 5, he goes, hey, Dad, I'm not staying with the nanny. You're my nanny. I'm going with you. So we would both wear these black suits. And I'd sit him at the front table with the sign in. He goes, my dad says you have to check in right here. Then he would always set up in the very front seat of the front row and be doodling, but he looked like he's taking notes. By the time he was 10, he goes, Dad, I don't think you got that concept right. What about this? There are plenty of things that were insightful. Today, he does pretty well. My daughter, I was smart enough to wait till she was 7 because it's a lot of work to have a nanny and this and that. So I took her when he's 7. She didn't bother sitting in the front row. She would come up and took a high chair herself and put it in the front of the class, looking out at the class. There's 50 people in there, professionals at a negotiating class. And she'd be sitting up front, man, taking notes and she's a lawyer today. She's a lawyer today, right? And she'll tell you that the influences of listening to people and watching and understanding those dynamics in both my son, by the time he was 21, was in Business Insider magazine. He was one of the 104 most influential people in finance at 21 years old.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, and he would suggest to you that a lot of that came. Now, that's not the whole story, because the problem with getting that kind of accolade that early is that you start to believe that you're God. And in the
Yes. Yep.
finance game, for me, when that happened, I thought this will not be good, because there's a yang to that yin. And there
Mm-hmm.
was, but he's 30 now, and he's learned and evolved
He's
from
found his
that. But
balance.
Humbled himself.
Yeah,
yeah,
Derek,
but in
I
every one of
love.
those cases, the
Well,
difference
I was just gonna
is
say,
knowledge.
go ahead, Derek, finish, and then I'll come
No,
back
no, I'm
after you.
done. I
Are
want to
you
hear
sure?
you.
Well, no, I love the fact that you expose them from an early age. I feel like a lot of people take their kids and, they'll find a sitter and just keep them somewhere. Whereas really having them be a part of your world, being a
Mm-hmm.
part of the dialogue makes them such a well-rounded human being, and exposing them to different professionals, different conversations, allowed them to be where they are today. They sound to be quite confident people, because you allow them to be in that space, and you allow them to grow and be curious and be wanderlust, as you said. So kudos to you
Yes.
as a parent,
Yeah.
right? I
I
think
mean,
that's just amazing.
Yes.
keeping
Joyful.
it talking about kids, I feel like people forget that we're not raising kids, we're raising future adults.
Mm-hmm.
So ever since my daughter was 2.5 years old, she orders at restaurants for herself.
Love it.
Like, if I
There you
start doing
go.
it, she'll interrupt me and she'll say, I want chocolate chip pancakes. I'm like, we didn't agree to that, but okay.
But it's showing them
You-
independence on the front end, and allowing them to be a problem solver themselves, allowing
Mhm.
them to just have that self-awareness and assurance that they can advocate, because that giving them that inch will literally grow into a mile in a football field, that will just continue to grow as a person,
Mhm.
and as
And then they pass that knowledge down to their kids and their kids.
and
It's
generational.
exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
generational
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yep.
Right. So it's generational wisdom and wanderlust, right? I have this idea that I told my kids when they were young. I said, number one, there's two things: there's riches and wealth. So in order
Mm-hmm.
to raise my kids, there was a lot of money I didn't make, because I would limit my travel schedule, or I'd take them with me. I left a lot of money on the table. Not a cent of it do I regret. So I told them riches are the dollars and cents we need to pay for the groceries and the trips to Disneyland and Disney World and all of that. We need riches. But I said the more important thing, or just as important, is wealth. And wealth are the things that money cannot buy. They're the
Mm-hmm.
things, the appreciation for the sunset, the sunrise, for the beach or a flower, or for hanging out with people that are not like you, that don't speak your language, to eat their food. That becomes your food, to hear the music, because that becomes your music. And now you have not so much what people are looking for. They talk about being balanced in life. That's complete. You can't have balance if you have kids and a work and a wife or a spouse. What you can have, because balance, if you put two people on a teeter totter, it is virtually impossible to actually achieve balance for any more than a nanosecond, right? So balance is literally impossible. But I talk to my kids about creating harmony, because with harmony, it's like the chord of the notes of a chord. Sometimes you're going to live with distress and discomfort and unhappiness, but don't let that destroy the joy and the opportunity, because the sunset's still there. So I look
Yep.
for harmony in life. Like Bruce Lee said, be like water. You put water in a cup, it becomes the cup, and it fills the cup. It doesn't just go to one corner. So in
And
doing that
harmony,
for our children, what's that?
harmony's great, but then you pick two of them up from daycare at 5 o'clock, and the harmony breaks really
No,
quick
I mean,
sometimes.
no. Well, it's one
It's
note
not always
in a
sunshine and
different.
rainbows.
My kids used to cry. I would, when they'd cry. The two of them would go, ah. What I would do is just join in. I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
Yep.
I actually do that too, and they
Same.
look at you weird, like, okay, all right.
And then I
So
asked
we
if it
have Yeah. Are you done? Yeah. Yeah. So I hate to be the party pooper, but we have 20 seconds left in our hour-long podcast. It was a great conversation with Derrick. Derrick, where could people find you and get your books?
Well, great. Online at h-c.com. Or I really would invite people to go on LinkedIn, follow me and link up with me on LinkedIn, Derrick Chevalier. And there's information on both places about the book. But I'm going to bug you all to jump in January in a brand new year.
Let's do it.
And let's really inspire some people to have a wonderful life. We're going to certainly be in a new reality, regardless of what happens in November. But I want to come on and be part of the inspiration. Thank you. The three of you are perfect. And
you don't have to compliment Alex.
Well, I don't. That's the thing. When you're old, I don't have to do anything except what I want, and I get to compliment you because it's well deserved. So I love the relaxed nature. Thanks so much.
Great.
So I want to spell your name real quick. His links are going to be in the description, whether you're watching this on YouTube or in listening on the podcast. But it's Derrick, and the last name Chevalier.
Right.
I read it.
That was perfect. Chevalier.
Delta Echo. Okay.
Keep going.
I'm done.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, Derrick. Alex and Jen, say bye to peeps. And
thank you so much. Jen Konikoff signing off here.
Alex Mendel, thank everybody for joining us today.
And your boy Chris Cusimano here. I'll see you guys next week.
See you in January, Derrick.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Good.